All right. Hi, everybody. I hope we've got most of you here by now. I think we're about ready to get started here with our webinar. So I hope you guys are all settled in, had a nice little lunch, and you're ready to learn a little bit about presenting your best virtual self on the screens. Welcome to the webinar. My name is Travis. I am going to introduce myself a little further here. I just want to start out by letting everyone that's on the video now know, and also those watching in the future, that this is being recorded. So you will be able to review it after the fact, and I will be sending out a link to the video once we do have it posted publicly. So definitely pay attention now, but if you need to review, because we're going to be going through this real fast, if you need to go back and look at it again, you're more than welcome to. So great, here we are. We're talking about presenting your best virtual self. I'm going to be spending the next 45 minutes or so going into some of the details on what to really think about and look for when you are getting ready to be on a virtual meeting or present a virtual presentation like this. So let's dive right into it. Before we get too far into the content of the presentation, let's start with some introductions. So first of all, again, my name is Travis Jones. I'm the business coordinator here at Vermont Panergy, which means I have a lot of different hats. One of those things is occasionally providing training such as this. You've probably also seen my videos on LinkedIn and YouTube. I also do a lot of sort of technical support and business development things as well. So good person as a first contact, and I can direct you in the right direction to get you what you need from us here at Panergy. You can see my contact information here. You're more than welcome to write that down, take a screenshot, whatever you need to do, and contact me down the road if you have questions, and I'm happy to answer them. A little bit more about Vermont Panergy. We are a small business here based out of South Burlington, Vermont, that specializes in really three different aspects, main aspects. The first one being IT services, where we provide managed IT services. We help them with installations and configurations and setup of networks and all those fun things. So if you are a part of or responsible for that level of responsibility in your business, and your business fits that 10 to 20 employee window, definitely reach out. I'm sure we can probably help you out with some things that you may not be comfortable with doing yourself. We also do a lot of workplace and talent development. We have classes that run now almost exclusively virtually. We'll probably get back to in-person classes soon, but for now they're all being run through a virtual environment. And some of those classes are technical, related to Office applications like Word and Excel. Some classes we have on like programming in SQL or managing Windows servers. There's a lot of different levels of that technical training that we provide, but we also do a lot of professional development training as well. You may notice some of the recent posts on our LinkedIn page do point to a lot of those classes that we do. So things like effective office communication, things like development of certain soft skills like customer service, or dealing with stressful situations. A lot of different things there, not technical, at least in terms of IT, but still very much important to a functioning business. We also do, finally, as you can see here, hardware and software sales. So if your company is just looking to buy some new hardware, we can help you price it out, make sure you're getting what you need, and also help you with renewals and warranties and whatever other things need to be applied to those purchases. So you can see our website here. Again, you're welcome to write that down or bookmark it if you want in your browser. And then we're also on social media. So take a look on our LinkedIn page. We're also on Alignable if you're local to South Burlington area. Look for us there as well. The next thing I want to mention here is specifically about the way that Vermont Panergy focuses on training. What we're experiencing right now, is very much not typical when we do trainings here at Vermont Panager, almost never do we just have our trainer talking into a camera with no reaction or interaction from the students. So what we do try to do is really make it interactive. We typically will have our classes from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. So all day long with breaks interspersed. Some classes do run more than one day, depending on the complexity of the topic or the level of interactivity there is. We want to make sure that these classes give you the real the opportunity to really digest what it is you're learning, practice it, get feedback, ask your questions, and get it all answered. So having the full long classes is really important for that. This is just 45 minutes, so there's not really time for all that other stuff. That said, we do have, like we have now, a live led human instructor on the other end of every single one of these trainings. So there's no recorded or non-interactive experiences. It's all very much live in person with our instructor. We try to limit our class sizes so that you're not worried that you might not get the attention you need to get your questions answered. So our class sizes are limited. Very interactive, as I was saying before. We always encourage our students to be on video and unmute themselves and ask questions and interact in a collaborative setting, more so than something like this where we could use Q&A features, but we don't necessarily have the ability for all of you guys to be providing, getting on video and asking your questions verbally, because there's just too many of you and we just don't have time for that. So in our full classes, we do place a high priority on that. It's very immersive and also very personalized, right? Because those classes are small, we are able to really focus on the needs of each individual that's in the class and make sure that we're meeting those needs rather than trying to just provide some blanket thing like I'm doing today and hope that you get something useful out of it. So that's pretty cool. Finally, we also use professionally produced content and courseware. Some of it we produced ourselves in-house, some of it we get from other sources, but it's all vetted and it's all very high quality courseware. And it comes a lot of times with a manual. A lot of times there's exercise files, and we really try to get you what you need to make sure that the class is a success. All right, cool. So that's a little bit about how we do most of our trainings. This, like I said at the beginning, this is not one of those typical trainings. So let's just dive right in here and talk a little bit more about what our best virtual self is, how we can best present it. So there are some established norms and best practices already out there, and there were even before March. A lot of people use these platforms for meetings, so there are already a number of these things. Well, let's go through them real quick here. The first one, and this is probably the most important thing to do before, way before the meeting even starts, maybe right after you install the program, whether it's Teams or Zoom or WebEx or whatever program it is, make sure that it works for what you need it to do, right? If all you're needing to do is watch a webinar, then there's not a whole lot of testing. As long as you can open it and see it, then you can see what's going on and you can hear what's going on, then you're good. But if you are going into a meeting or you're coming into one of our trainings where interaction is expected, then you do also want to make sure that your camera is working, that your microphone's working, and that it's all good. The next one here is punctuality, right? We always want to make sure that we're not running late. I did see a few of you guys manage to get logged in late. When I first checked a little bit right before I started, there was 7 folks. Now there's 11. So coming in late to something, you may miss something in the beginning. And if you're the presenter or if you're an important part of that conversation, well, shoot, I mean, it's really important to be on time. So think about that. We're not driving anywhere. We don't have all the same excuses that we might be able to have coming in late to a physical meeting. And so it's really important to maybe even try connecting a few minutes before the meeting's supposed to start. Yeah. So that way you can make sure everything's working and make sure you're able to see and they're able to see you and deal with those issues before the meeting starts. Next one here is very important, and as an example, you can kind of see in my tiny little video over on the right there, or at the bottom if you're on an iPhone or mobile device. The framing, the background, the lighting, you want to look good, right? And you want to make sure you look good. So take a look at that little preview box of you and make sure that you do look good. Adjust where your camera is if that's possible. Adjust what's visible behind you if that's possible, and make sure that you're centered and the lighting is good and that you can be seen. Speaking of lighting, we'll talk a little more about this in a minute, but when you're thinking about lighting, think about the spectrum of light of the light bulb you're using. I happen to have a nice big window here, so I'm able to get a lot of natural light in, and that looks good on a camera. But if you're maybe in a room that doesn't have windows, or the windows are in the wrong place, or you are in a basement or something like that, then you're going to need to be using artificial light, and you want to make sure you're using white light, because the more yellow the light is, the more it distorts you and what you look like in the video. So try and find those like natural light bulbs and get one like that, and make sure that the light is in a good spot, that it shines on you, doesn't cause a whole ton of like reflection or washing out of your image on the video, and is in the correct location. Background also, like I said, is important, and then as you can see, I have a little flag up here, which is my background. But I did have to move a few things off my desk because this camera is so wide, to make sure that it looked good behind me. In a pinch, you can use these virtual backgrounds, but you've probably seen other people use them before, and the quality of the video there is kind of distracting almost, because it's constantly trying to analyze where your body is and cut that out, and sometimes it fails and sometimes it just doesn't catch up, and it just looks weird. So I would say, generally speaking, avoid those virtual backgrounds unless absolutely necessary. We also have paying attention. Of course, this is important. When your camera is on, you want to make sure that you are appearing to be paying attention, at least, if you are. When we're doing our trainings at Vermont Panergy, I like having all of our students to have their cameras on, even if they're not talking, because this allows me to really gauge the audience and make sure that people are paying attention. And if I can see like people appear to be distracted, or maybe their eyes are a little droopy or whatever, I can see that because their camera's on, and then I can respond to it. If you're the one doing the presenting or the talking in that moment, then of course it's very important that you are paying attention to the camera, right? Not necessarily to the screen that you're talking about, because every time I look away from the camera, it's immediately the people that are watching me are like, oh, he's distracted. He's not thinking about us anymore. So really focus on the camera, and not even necessarily the screen underneath the camera, but the camera itself. And then also managing your microphone and making sure that you mute yourself when you're not talking is also very important, because a lot of times we don't even know the sounds that we're making when we're just paying attention to something else. And sometimes you might yawn, or you might start eating chips, or you might take a drink of water or cough or sneeze or whatever. And if your mic isn't muted, that is a very big distraction, because that ends up being just as loud as the person that's talking, and boom, they're throwing them off. So yeah, so make sure that you're muted when you're not talking, and make sure you unmute yourself when you are talking. Otherwise, no one's going to know that you're trying to say something. That's a good one. All right. So next we have, of course, this is as usual, this is important, appropriate clothing and hygiene. We'll talk more about this in the next slide, but needless to say, it's important to look good when a camera is on you. So think about that. Let's talk a little more about that. What kind of healthy physical habits are there that are really going to help you not only look good on the camera, but feel confident that you look good on the camera, right? I mean, shoot, you got to take care of your body. It's so important that we think about how we're feeling, right? Coming in physically. Oh man, I feel dirty, or I feel bloated, or I feel whatever it is. I I I need to be able to think about that, and not even necessarily say like, oh, let's just move that to the side. I don't have time to deal with that right now. Is that doesn't really help either, right? You're just suppressing that emotion. What we really need to do is we need to address it, right? We need to say like, oh, I feel dirty. Okay, I'm gonna go take a shower. Maybe I don't have time to take a shower. At least wash my face. At least like do something. Put some baking, what is it, baby powder in my hair. Whatever it is I need to do to feel better, I need to do before I get on the camera, because a clean you is a confident you. The more clean you feel, the more confident you're going to feel when people are observing you, right? So I took a shower this morning. I brushed my teeth this morning. I'm wearing like real pants this morning. I came dressed to feel impressive so that I can come off as that when I'm talking to you guys. This is a very important concept. Another important thing to think about, whether it is before, during, or after, or in between, like if you're taking breaks, if it's a longer thing, stay hydrated, stay satiated, eat snacks, keep your blood sugar up, like feel good. And if you feel like you're starting to get thirsty or hungry, then deal with that. Like what is the appropriate response? Do I take a drink of water and then just continue talking? Yeah, of course, because no one wants to listen to someone talk that's like all parched and all they're thinking about is, oh man, that person's thirsty. They're not thinking about what you're actually saying. So feel confident that you are taking care of yourself. And maybe you need a break to have a snack or something. Take a break. It helps also to build those breaks in. If you're facilitating the meeting or the training, share, okay, we're going to take a break at an hour and a half in. We're going to take another break at 3 hours in, or whatever it is, and feel it out too, like where are you at? So these are important. Now I'm going to take a drink of water because I'm thirsty. Awesome. Posture is so important. As I say that, you can see like I'm starting to sit up a little straighter, right? It's so important to make sure that you're sitting up straight when you're on these videos. And it's so easy to just fall into that, like your sort of standard posture when you're sitting in front of your computer. If you don't have a really good chair or one of those they have those chairs that don't even have a back. They're more like a stool. Some of them have these funky knee things for your legs. Those really help, but most of us don't have that. I'm just using a regular office chair here. It doesn't even really have a ton of lumbar support. It doesn't have a whole lot of adjustment that can be done. And so I really have to be conscious of how my posture is and what my body is doing sitting in this chair. I have to push my bottom back, sit up straight, square my shoulders, and I have to keep that in my mind. I've seen ads for these things that you can like put on your shoulders that will like kind of like send you like a mild little shock or something if it recognizes that you're starting to droop your shoulders. So if that's something that's really a problem for you, then you may want to think about some sort of assistance in reminding yourself to sit up straight. But again, the better your posture, the better you're going to look to everyone that's seeing you, and the better that you're going to feel, the more confident you're going to feel as you're talking. So when I'm sitting when I'm all down like this and I'm just not really like, how do I look? I don't really look that good, do I? I can kind of like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to really listen to that guy. But sitting up straight, like it's a power position, right? It makes you feel more in control of yourself, and therefore making you feel more in control of the presentation and the talking that you're doing. Breaks, like I said before, breaks are super duper important. Maybe not so much for something that's only 45 minutes long, But like I said in the beginning, you know, our classes generally go a full day. So having that lunch break in the middle is super important, but even having breaks in the morning and afternoon as well, really it gives people, not only does it give people an opportunity to break away from the screen, it's so hard to just stare at a screen and listen to somebody talk for that long, right? But it also gives people the expectation that, you know, they're going to have an opportunity to go to the bathroom or go get a snack or deal with their kids' issue with whatever they're doing. Yeah. Now that we're all working from home these days, I think there's a lot more distractions possible, especially, you know, if you have kids and you have uh, uh, more people in your household that can offer those distractions. Another good reason to make sure your mic's muted when you're not talking, right? Kid comes up to you, hey, can you help me with this? Well, oh my gosh, my mic wasn't muted, and now everyone in the meeting just heard my kid say that to me. Oh, great, now I got to deal with that. Yep. So giving those breaks, be like, okay, yeah, I can help you with that at our next break in 10 minutes. See you then. Boom. You know, if you didn't know that a break was coming up and you're just sitting there like, well, I'm in this meeting right now and it's, I can't help you. Like that, kids don't want to hear that, right? That doesn't really work. So yeah, so having those breaks built in, having those breaks regular, and taking advantage of them is really going to help you stay healthy, stay confident, and really stay focused on the message that you're trying to deliver. All right, so there's some important communication topics to talk about here as well, and it's more than just the words that you use or the cadence or the tone. Like, yes, those are all important, but those are important regardless of the situation in which we're having a meeting, whether it's virtual, in person, over the phone, whatever. So let's talk about some of the other things that might not be something you're thinking about if you're used to those other types of meetings, right, and environments. So the first thing to think about is that you're on camera, right? And cameras, like, I don't know if you ever watch, if you watch TV, like reality shows and things, especially with these high definition cameras that we have now more and more, it picks up everything, and it picks up even things that you may not even notice about yourself. In terms of, I remember the first time I recorded a video for our YouTube, and I put it up online. I was watching it. I noticed like that my mouth, like when I'm talking, it tends to kind of go down to one direction, like continuously, like going to the left. And that was weird to me at first. Well, I've since come to accept it about myself. But just remember that, like, the way that you hold yourself, the way that you look at the camera, where your eyes go, where your hands go, everything that the camera can see, everyone that is looking at you is seeing. So it's really important to just keep that in mind, right? Non-verbal is just as important as verbal communication here, and assume that all eyes are always on you. When you're sitting in a meeting and you look around the table and you see everyone is looking in another direction from you, you know that you can, like, relax a little bit, right? But you don't necessarily know that when you're on a camera here in a virtual environment. So try to be as hyper aware of your nonverbal and your verbal like what you're giving off to the camera, and prepare yourself for that too. Maybe eat some fruit or something. Like, put yourself in a really positive mindset so that when the camera starts recording, you not only look good, but you feel good and people can see it. Eye contact is super important. Like, this is kind of what I was saying before. The camera is right there. I need to be looking at the camera, and I need to think of the camera as if it were the eyes of the people that are watching me. And so every time I go and I read something off of another screen, or my eyes go anywhere, that is noticed by your audience. And you just saw it happen right there because I went and started thinking about something. So be strategic with with your eye contact and try and focus, again, focusing on the camera rather than and this can be tricky, right? Like when you're in a meeting and everyone's got their cameras on, you want to talk to someone and respond to someone, so you look at them in the box, but all of a sudden your eyes come off the camera, and everyone that's watching you talk, they don't know who you're looking at. They just see that you're not looking at the camera, so it doesn't look like you're looking at them. And that can be confusing and a little distracting, and you have to like clarify. You should still say like, okay, here's who I'm talking to if there's confusion there, but looking into the camera makes everyone else see you as if you're looking at them, and it feels more, there's more of a connection there when they're watching you talk. There are a lot of tools that are built into these platforms that we use now to facilitate communication when we are the mic's muted or our camera's off, or we're in a webinar environment like this where turning on your mic isn't even an option, right? There's things like polls. You can raise a virtual hand. A lot of times there's a chat panel. A lot of times there's a Q&A section. And so knowing what tools you have at your disposal before you go into the virtual environment, whether it's a presentation or a meeting or whatever, knowing what those tools are and strategizing how you can use them is really going to help you really in the long run understand what your options are. Think about also these tools when you're thinking about how to monitor your audience engagement. So especially when you're presenting, like right now, for example, I'm talking to you guys. Y'all are watching me and you're hopefully learning some things. But nowhere on the screen is there a button for you to like click a hand raise or enter a question. Part of the reason I did that was because we just didn't have time for Q&A with such a limited period for this webinar. And part of it is, I mean, it's just it would be potentially crazy to do that. We have a class. We have a whole day's worth of a class that covers this exact topic that I'm talking about today in so much detail, with opportunities to practice and get your questions answered and all of these things. So I didn't enable those tools in this presentation. I could have though. And if I had, I could have used those tools to determine whether or not you guys are really paying attention to me or where you're at, right? I've given trainings to groups of like 12 people before. And when you get that big of a group together, there's much less social pressure to leave your camera on when you're not talking. So what I noticed was that, you know, these 12 people, I would start and I would say, hey, let's all turn our cameras on so that we can introduce each other and get to know each other a little better. By the time the introductions were over, everyone's cameras had turned off. And I wasn't going to be like, hey guys, turn your cameras back on. That's not cool. Because like, whatever, you want to turn your camera off, like who am I to stop you? That said, you know, because all of their cameras were off, and I'm sitting here talking, and I don't really know if anyone's actually paying attention to me. So what I can do is quick little things like, okay, so how are you guys feeling? Do you maybe ask some quick, you know, yes or no question based on the content that I just threw out there? Maybe like and then I can say like, raise your hand if you think that eye contact with the camera is the #1 most important thing to making people feel like you're interacting with them when they're watching you on a virtual environment. And then you guys could raise your hand or not raise your hand. I can also use the polls to do the same thing, right? Like, okay, here's a list of effective communication methods. Go ahead and choose the one that you think is the one that you're going to struggle with the most as you're, you know, improving your abilities in presenting yourself here. And then I can give you guys a chance to do that, or a chat, like type in the chat like this and that. these tools really, peppering these in, especially if you've already got them planned, it makes it easier. Then you don't have to go and build the poll while you're presenting. Having these built in throughout your presentation or your meeting gives people a chance to respond in a way that may be a little bit more comfortable to them than having to unmute themselves and then start talking. It also allows you to determine how things are going. It's like a status report. So if you say raise your hand to this, and you would expect everyone to raise their hand, and then maybe like 2 people do, then that would be evidence that people aren't really paying that much attention, and maybe it's time for a break, or maybe it's time for someone else to talk, or a different topic to be discussed. On the other hand, like, you come back from a break and say, all right, everyone, go ahead and raise your hand when you are back and paying attention, and immediately all the hands go up, and it's like, all right, great, let's get started. And so really useful tools, and they help you kind of gauge that level of engagement when you're really stuck, potentially. Of course, I can't do that today because, again, you guys are just watching, so that's fine. So like, we went through communication methods. We went through a good number of physical habits and things you can do. We went through a number of established norms and best practices. I'm going to bring that window back up here again, because I want you guys to again look at this this list. We went into a little bit more detail on all these things, but there's a few things to think about and dive a little deeper in on some of these. So I'm going to start with testing your technology and thinking about your technology in general. As you can see, I have a headset on. The computer that I'm using does have a built-in microphone. It has a built-in camera. And feasibly, I could get away with just using that. However, I happen to know from experience that the microphone in this computer it picks up everything. It's not focused on my voice. And so if I were just using that, you'd be able to hear all the hums of all the computers in the office here. You'd be able to potentially hear the hums of the electricity, or if there was a refrigerator, you'd hear that. Like, it picks up a lot of background noise, right? And chances are your computer's microphone does the same thing if you have a built-in microphone on your computer. So thinking about using a headset, or using a phone and having your headphones plugged into the phone. Most of those headphones have a separate little microphone attached. Also, these days, a lot of these smartphones are so advanced. They've got like 20 different microphones on them, and then depending on how it's being used, it'll use those microphones to identify background noise and cancel it out and focus on your voice. So if you're using a newer smartphone, there's a chance that you don't need to worry too much about having an external microphone or a headset or something. But again, testing is the most important thing. So once you get your program installed on your computer and your app on your phone or whatever, get somebody else that uses that same platform to do a test call with you and make sure your camera works, make sure your mic sounds good, ask some questions about what it sounds like, what you look like. And that's going to set you up for a much better experience. Make sure also that, if you are having a meeting in Teams, for example, and you want to do it on your phone, so you get the Teams app on your phone and you do a test call with your coworker. But when you're doing your test call, you're just using the phone as it is, right? You don't have headphones or anything plugged in. But then for the meeting itself, you plug headphones in. You haven't tested the headphones yet. So make sure you're testing the full configuration of your technology in the method or in the manner that you're going to be using it during the actual meeting, so that you're set up for success. I can't tell you how many times it's like, okay, everything works, and then that something changes in their configuration, and when they join, there's like no audio or something, and we have to troubleshoot that. So yeah, so think about that. Also, another note about the framing, lighting, and background. A professional background doesn't necessarily mean something like this. Like you don't necessarily need to have anything behind you. It could just be a white wall. It could be like some expression of your personality. Some of it depends on what you're trying to portray or how you're trying to portray yourself. Obviously we're a technology company, so me having this Microsoft flag behind me reinforces that identity, right? And it helps you kind of see us as a technology company. But if you're like a holistic healer or something, then maybe you would want some sort of like groovy tie-dye tapestry behind you. Or if you're a doctor, maybe you would want to have I don't know, just like a diagram of the human body or whatever resonates with your line of work, as a sort of subliminal sort of identity marker, right? So that's something to think about. Sometimes backgrounds can be too boring, and I mean, a lot of times I've seen people, it's like, oh, they're just in front of a white wall, and it's like, okay, well, that's not very creative. It doesn't really tell me anything about them other than that maybe they don't like the rest of the way the rest of their house or their office looks. So that's something to consider. Just thinking about what your background's going to look like. If you don't have the ability to like move your computer or connect, maybe you have a desktop and it's in your bedroom and that's the only place it can be in your house. I remember I was doing a training with someone and that was exactly the case. Not only that, but their bedroom was a complete mess because they were in the middle of like renovating and changing the purposes of different rooms. And so it was just like piles of things. Like there was a closet with a missing door. There's all kinds of things that were wrong with this lady's background. And we were talking about it a little bit and she was like, oh, what if I just do this? And she had this the closet door that had come off of the closet she just had sitting there. So she picked that up and kind of propped it up in front of everything and then sat down in front of it and boom, it looked so much better because instead of having this mess behind her, it was just a door, like an expanded folding door. So there's little hacks and things like that you can do. You put up like a bed sheet or something if need be. If possible, I would definitely recommend trying to do that over just using the virtual backgrounds, because again, when you use those virtual backgrounds, it ends up looking like you move around and then all of a sudden like half of your face is cut off and then it comes back, or you move this way and then there's a little bit of the background and then that goes away and it looks weird. So I'm not a huge fan of those, and they're just not that professional. So something to think about. Good. Yeah. So, whew, man, I was just talking really fast there for a while. Let me just see real quick here if there's any other things I wanted to dive into a little deeper. Again, those healthy physical habits are super important. Feel clean, whatever that means to you. There's no smell-o-vision on the internet yet, so as long as you don't have to worry about what other people think of you, at least your smell, then as long as you feel clean and you look clean, then you're gonna be clean and you're gonna be confident too. Keep yourself well fed. I always like to recommend snacks, and as far as the types of snacks that are useful, healthy sugars like fruits and vegetables, eating those types of things are going to give you a much more long-lasting energy and positive feelings than like candy bars or processed sugars. Things like eating salads instead of like hamburgers, right? Avoid things with lots of carbs, avoid things with lots of complex proteins, because your body is going to have to work harder to digest those things, and you're going to feel more tired as a result. And you're going to feel like you need to compensate for that, whether it's with caffeine like coffee or sugar. So just be aware of what you're putting into your body before the video starts, and you should be that should set you up for a better experience. Yeah, and then building those breaks in. I think a lot of us are going to find opportunities to present like I'm doing now. We're going to find probably a lot more opportunities to interact one-on-one or in a group, with these meetings, these virtual meetings and things. And so if the person that is facilitating or is kind of in charge of setting the meeting up doesn't set a time limit or doesn't mention when breaks are going to be, that might be your cue to say, like, hey, I just want to make sure that we're all going to be feeling good through this meeting. When do you think we should have our breaks, or how long do you think it's going to take? And get those things clarified before the meeting starts. So it is now 1:44, and I promised that I'd be done in 45 minutes. So we're looking pretty good there. One last reminder here: we do a lot of training here at Vermont Panergy, and because it's all virtual now, you guys can attend from wherever you have an internet connection, and really get a lot out of this stuff. So if you're interested in learning more about the trainings that we have, you can go to our website, panergyvt.com, and you can take a look at our class schedule, take a look at some of the course outlines of each various different classes that we have. On the homepage, there's a link to look at all the upcoming live distance learning classes, the remote classes that we do, and when they're happening. So you can do that, and then you can also contact us from there. You're more than welcome to email me directly if you have questions about what our offerings are, or if there's something in particular you want to learn about. And then I can get you in touch with the correct people to get that done. And but otherwise, you can use the contact form on our website, or even just the class sign-up form on our website. Both of those are really just opportunities for us to connect and start the conversation, so we can make sure that we're getting you what you need. So with all of that, I want to thank you guys once again for attending. Keep an eye out. I'll have this posted on YouTube here in a little while later this afternoon, and I'll send out a link to that so you guys can review. You can share it with your friends, whatever you want to do. Once again, thank you so much for coming, and I hope that moving forward, some of the tips that we talked about today really do send your virtual self confidence and vision into the stratosphere. Awesome. All right. Thanks, y'all. Have a great day.